Good afternoon. My name is Jenelle Riley. I'm the film and television editor of Backstage. I want to welcome you for this very special SAG Foundation conversation with the Social Network. At this time, I'd like to welcome three people that you may not have seen on screen, but were very vital in putting together one of the most acclaimed films of the year. First, we have one of our favorite casting directors in the business. She's collaborated closely with David Fincher since casting his 1999 film Fight Club. Please welcome Laray Mayfield. Also joining us, we have an actor. He's got a great story. His face might not appear on screen, but he truly turns in one of the year's most important performances. Please welcome Josh Pence. People are so excited to see what you look like. Also joining us today is the Emmy and WGA winning writer whose script for The Social Network has already received the Humanitas Prize, the Golden Globe, and just yesterday was nominated for an Academy Award, Aaron Sorkin. Thank you all so much for being here this afternoon. I just want to start by asking, Aaron, how did you hear about the Oscar nomination? Were you up at 5:38 a.m.?
I was up at 3:30 a.m. I kept worrying that I was going to sleep past it. I'm not going to nonchalant it and say, you know, gee, I didn't even know they were coming out. Yes, I was. I was up, and I watched them, and I have to say, literally the moment my name was announced, my agent then called. He had to have had a lot of confidence. He had to have had me on the speed dial thing, and his finger right over it went bam.
And he called. It was like, what is it, Jeopardy? The letters that come up.
There it is.
Producer Scott Rudin was here on Sunday with Laray, and he really said that this film sort of began with a lunch you two had, where he asked what you were interested in writing about, and you said the internet?
That's right. I have long thought, and this movie has only cemented that feeling for me, that Scott, this isn't hyperbole, I think that Scott is our greatest living producer, both in films and on Broadway, and I write plays too. I had a play that was in previews a couple of years ago on Broadway. Scott came to see a preview, then asked to have lunch, and I think it was breakfast, as a matter of fact. And he said, you know, what would you like to write about? And I said, I don't know. I don't have an idea for anything, but the internet, I find myself kind of doing a lot of rants about it and having a lot of arguments with people about it. So I'm keeping an eye out for something. And then it was a little while after that he sent me a 14-page book proposal written by Ben Mesrick, who's an author who lives in Boston, about the founding of Facebook and the friction that occurred among its founders. That book proposal was sent to Hollywood to try to set up a simultaneous film deal, and that's how it wound up in my hands. On page 3 of the book proposal, I said yes, and ordinarily, the book hadn't been written yet, and I just assumed that Sony would want to wait until the book was finished for me to start writing the screenplay, or at least wait until the book was begun for me to start writing the screenplay, and they didn't. They wanted me to start right away. So Ben Mesrick and I began at roughly the same time, him writing the book and me writing the screenplay.
That's interesting because you're nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. Mm-hmm. Did you really use the book?
Sure. I don't want to underplay Ben's contribution at all. If you were to read the book, you would definitely see that it's a relative of the movie. There were things you can see in the way that he's telling the story. There are things that are more important to Ben than they were to me, and there were things that were more important to me than they were to Ben. But we met 2 or 3 times during the process to compare notes and compare information. He was able to turn me on to certain sources that I would ask different questions of, and that's how it happened.
Did he ever end up using anything that you uncovered in your research?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Did you ever read the book?
It's
No, because I mean, you probably had your script done first.
it's no. He's faster than I am. He sent me the first galley of the book when I was about 3/4 of the way through the screenplay, and I honestly I can't give him enough credit.
Speaking of sources, I know Scott spent a lot of time trying to get Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg actually involved. Did it free you as a writer to not have their involvement?
It did. We Scott and I aggressively tried to get Mark to participate in making the movie. It was the fair thing to do because I knew I would be talking to people who had an axe to grind with Mark, and I felt like I could filter that and understand that I was listening to less than objective voices, but I really wanted to give Mark an opportunity to have his 2 cents. And Mark and Mark's consiglieres deliberated on it for a while and ended up doing exactly what I would have done, which is decline. Mark knew what the story was going to be, and he said no. But I would be lying if I didn't say I was relieved that he passed. Had he participated, I think that it would have seemed like the movie was a Facebook production, that it was an infomercial of sorts. And had he participated, I think that he surely would have insisted on some kind of editorial controls, which I just as surely would not have given him. So it all worked out.
And at what point did they tell you David Fincher was going to be directing the movie?
Immediately. That was incredible. David was a counterintuitive choice to direct this movie. David is best known for being peerless as a visual director, and I write people talking in rooms. But nonetheless, between Scott and the studio and myself, David wasn't just the first choice, he was the only choice to direct the movie. I delivered the script to Sony on a Thursday in the morning, and a few hours later, it was greenlit. That afternoon, or evening, that the script was messengered to David, and the next morning, I got an email from David that said, "Sorkin, Fincher, I'm directing The Social Network. Can I come over?" And that's how it happened. It was fantastic. And the very first thing that he did, because that script that I turned in was 162 pages long, which, as you all know, is about 40 pages longer than the average screenplay. And the shooting script was 162 pages long. Nothing was left on the cutting room floor. There's literally nothing cut from the movie. It's terrific. The only problem with that is that the DVD, and I'm not trying to sell DVDs here, but the DVD, which is terrific, contains no extended scenes or deleted scenes. But the first thing that happened was the studio said to David, listen, you're going to have to get him to, get it down to 135. Can he do that? We're willing to make a long movie. David said, I don't think you're going to have to do that. I think this movie is not as long as you think it is. And the first thing that David and I did was he had a stopwatch, and he said, you're going to read the whole script out loud at the pace that you heard it in your head when you were writing it. And at the end of each scene, he'd click a stopwatch, and he'd write down the time, the first scene, 5 minutes and 7 seconds. And he added it all up. He said to the studio, it's going to be 1 hour and 59 minutes. The movie is 1 hour and 59 minutes.
Wow.
And then when we were rehearsing, he'd sit with Jesse and Rooney on the first scene, and they'd rehearse, and David would give the kinds of notes and adjustments that a director gives, and then say, and the scene right now is running 5 minutes and 40 seconds. It's got to be 5:07. I promise you, that's where the scene plays its best, and he did that with everybody.
Speaking of David Fincher, Laray, your association with him goes back to, I believe, like the third day you moved to Los Angeles. You met him?
First day. I met Dave the first day I came to LA, in 1986. And I worked with David as his assistant for a couple of years before I started doing casting with David. I was the first assistant David ever had.
And what does he sort of look for in actors when they come into the room? If you could offer actors advice if they're lucky enough to get to audition for David Fincher.
Well, David, he looks for great talent. He looks for strong work ethic. He is very attracted to individuality, and
Well, they've got to get past Laray first. They've got to get past her.
he looks for all the incredible qualities that you would look for in an actor. And David adores actors.
Mm-hmm.
He's very kind. He's very generous with actors. He understands their language very, very well. He's really, really knowledgeable about actors of all different levels, and so it's the coolest job anybody could have, casting a movie for David.
Maybe I should ask what you look for if they have to get past you
I
first.
look for those exact same things.
Now, Aaron, obviously you've created some great TV shows. Did you have any input in the casting? Did you want input?
I was there for the casting. I got to work very closely with Laray. In fact, the first round of casting was pretty much the two of us.
Yeah, it was fun.
And then David became involved. And what I remember, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about this.
Ooh, what did he write?
Is no. Is that first of all, everybody had to work very hard to get in the movie, and I know you're going to include Josh in just a second, but just in case people are unsure,
Josh can vouch.
Josh played Tyler Winklevoss, basically. It's just that you don't see him doing it.
You just don't see this.
Exactly right.
This fabulous.
And
part of him.
Josh was, and I'm going to answer your question in a second, but this is for real. This isn't a joke. Josh was so good in his several auditions for it. And he always read with Army. The two of them came in together and always read together. And Josh was so good in his auditions that I very seriously considered making them fraternal twins instead of identical twins, and having Josh do it. And it was just that last moment of it's too delicious that these guys really were identical twins somehow. But for that, and I'm sure that's just exactly what Josh wanted to hear, that he was that close.
Josh is like,
I'll sleep better tonight.
But Josh had to work, exactly as hard as Ari did. But what I was going to say was that my recollection is that we auditioned everybody, and you actually auditioned a ton of people even before I saw people. That we auditioned everybody, but that no one was really ever in the conversation except for the people who got cast in the movie. That Jesse was the only one